Hello and thanks for joining me for another episode of Aussie Lingo. So primarily I'm a gamer and I make gaming videos. However, only 0.04% of the people who watch my videos are Australian. The great majority of my viewers are American, and the rest of them are from all over the world, from places like Poland, Estonia, South Africa, Germany, the Netherlands, the UK, from all over the world. So I thought this would be a fun little series which I might do just once in a while, and this is going to build on our last episode. So if you haven't watched that, there will be a link in the description below for the playlist for this series. So we will get onto it and we'll start talking about our local language here in Australia, which loosely referred to as English. So we have a few different types of English, and basically, I mean, English seems like English everywhere, but it's not always the same. So, you know, we might say to someone who's speaking unintelligibly, we might say to them something like, "Speak frickin' English, mate." But if we're talking in Australia a bit more formally, then we would use what we call the Queen's English. And that's not a formal term for it. It's more of a term of endearment for it. It's just what we call the English that we're taught in school. And it's called that because of Queen Elizabeth II. And we are a sovereign state of the Brits. So we speak the Queen's English. So we were colonised by the Brits, and therefore our schools teach English, but they teach us British English. Well, with the exception of a few words, you know, such as the Brits will say lorry. We will never call that a lorry, we will call it a truck, just like most other people. And some people could argue, well, you know, shouldn't it be called the King's English? Because when the country was colonised, the Brits were ruled by this fellow here. That is King George III. So he's not a queen, although he does dress a bit like a queen. Not going to lie there. But so he was King George III, and since the Queen passed away in 2022, we now have this wanker to contend with. So you could argue that shouldn't it be the King's English? Well, no, because as I said before, it's a term of endearment. Now, me personally, I have never really been a fan of the royals, but there's a hell of a lot of Aussies who love the Queen, and pretty much any Australian who grew up here and is either still alive or old enough to actually speak English, well, they would have all grown up under the rule of the Queen, who ruled for almost 71 years. So I don't think the King's English will ever catch on. I think it'll always be the Queen's English. So that is different to our Aussie English, because we'll throw in our own little words. We have differences like I just shown you with the lorry, the truck. We'll never call it a lorry. We understand what it means, but we'll never call it a lorry. It'll always be a truck. So we have our own version of English as well. And so we'll talk about American English. So Americans speak English, but there's a lot of American terms that we don't use in our Aussie English. But we don't call it American English, we just call it American. So, you know, for example, a young child might be watching TV and they hear the word candy and they might come up and say, "What's candy?" Because that's not an Australian word. We don't use it. Although most adults here, they will know what it is. They'll know what it means. But it's not a word that we will ever use. And we'll turn around to that youngster and we'll say, "That's American for lolly." Okay? So we just call American English American. So there are different types of English, and American English is one of them. So we in Australia, most of us know a whole lot of American terminology. We'll never use it, but we do understand it when we hear it, and that's because we're constantly, for decades and decades, we've been bombarded by American media, TV shows, movies, books, all sorts of things. So, we pick it all up, but we don't use it. We understand it. So normally any American can come up to an Aussie and talk to us using a lot of American terminology that we don't use. We'll understand it, but we'll never use that in our everyday speech to other fellow Aussies. So aside from that sort of media, there's also terminology in games, because the majority of games that we play, such as Project Zomboid here, they are produced by Americans. And in this example here, we've got gasoline, and a gas can. Okay, so most Aussies, we're going to know what that means, but we would never use that terminology. We don't call it gasoline here. We would call it petrol. If you were an American and you come up to me and said, "Hey, I need some gasoline," well, I'd know that you meant petrol. But if you come up and you ask for gas, we might be more inclined to think that you wanted maybe propane, what we call gas for a barbecue, or maybe like natural gas that we use for our heating and for cooking and that sort of thing, gas stoves. So as far as the gas can is concerned, same thing. We wouldn't call it a gas can. We wouldn't really call it a petrol can either. We'd call it a jerry can. Don't ask me why that is, but it's just the way it is. And as far as a gas station, well, you could come up to an Aussie and say, "Hey, where's the nearest gas station?" We'll know what you're talking about, but I would never walk up to another Aussie and say, "Hey, where's the nearest gas station?" I'd say, "Hey, where's the nearest petrol station?" Or I might say, "Where's the nearest service station?" But a true blue Aussie is probably not going to bother saying all of that. They're probably just going to say, "Hey mate, where's the servo?" So that's what we would call it. That's a little bit of Aussie slang there for you. And that is probably going to do it for this little short episode. So I hope you did enjoy this video. If you did, then please leave me a like or a comment down below. And please leave me a comment down below of what country you're in, or what country you come from, and what languages you speak. So thank you very much for watching. I'll see you in the next video.